Welcome and greetings, everyone, to the new Dakota Boys Talk Movies. Tonight is kind of a bittersweet episode, but more recently, Bill Paxton passed away from complications from surgery, and we thought that we would just highlight just some of our favorite performances of his through his career. He's had a career that's gone back to the early 80s, really, is when he started getting some kind of supporting roles and just kind of built a career. And he's kind of one of those guys where you don't really think about him until you see him. But he's had a really strong career over those years where he's always been around. And even more recently, he had a hit TV show where he played a polygamist. What was that, on Showtime?
Yes.
Where he got a lot of acclaim even for that. So even into his later years here, he is getting all this acclaim for his show, Big Love. But like we said, his career goes back to getting his start back in the 80s. And I think probably credit to where credit's due. I think between John Hughes giving him a role in Weird Science and James Cameron, his friendship with James Cameron had really helped kind of not catapult, but jumpstart his career. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted to kind of highlight some of our favorite performances of his over the years. And so we're each going to do 3 movies he was in where we thought he did a good job in it for one reason or another. And so, Dakota, what's your first one that you got?
All right. You know, talking about Bill Paxton, how a lot of people might not recognize him, especially for some of you youngins, but you definitely, even though you can't recognize him, you definitely have either heard of a quote from him or said it yourself.
Yeah, he's been quoted from a few different movies, yeah.
Yeah, his big one, of course, would be, "Game over, man! Game over!"
I don't remember being that high.
Yeah, you know what? He had an interesting voice, okay?
Game over, man!
Game over! Because he could do that, like, dumb jock voice.
Yeah.
Almost, and it's what he did in Weird Science, I think.
Yep, kind of a dumb jock. Yep.
Yeah, but Aliens, for me, is probably the first movie where I really noticed him, because he was such... Well, he plays a Marine, but he plays the kind of the a-hole Marine, like the guy who's there, but he doesn't really want to be there.
He doesn't seem like he wants to be there, and he seems like the guy who's like, he's given people wedgies before. He just seems like that type of guy.
Yeah, he's not very gung-ho. It really makes you wonder what he's even doing in the military. Like he can't be bothered to... go kill some aliens.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, and it's like, why did he get this mission in deep space? Are we that desperate? So, but at the same time, he still got a heroic death in the end. He put his all into it.
Yeah, he actually makes it towards the end of the movie, which most of the other Marines, if you've seen it, don't do. And not only that, he kind of throws out those like one-liners throughout the whole movie,
which is why he couldn't die till the end. They need more one-liners.
Yeah. Oh, one quote of mine that when I used to game a lot, I used to throw out there. He's telling Ripley in Aliens the list of weapons they have. He's like, "Oh, we got plasma rifles, we got grenades, we got sharp knives, we got pointy sticks," and he just keeps going, and it's like. That is awesome. I loved it.
God. And he has a very unique resume listing that no one else can claim. He's the only actor to have been killed by an alien, a predator, and a Terminator.
Yes, that's right. The golden trifecta.
That is the true EGOT. Yeah. There's all these people like, "Oh, I want an Emmy, a Grammy, an Oscar, and a Tony." No, you don't. You want to be able to say you've been killed by an alien, a predator, and a Terminator. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they put you in the hall, some sort of shrine.
Somewhere in James Cameron's James Cameron's house, there's a shrine to Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Aliens, that was your introduction to him, and one of your favorite performances.
Yeah. I just love that movie overall. I think I've talked about it ad nauseum probably throughout our episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, I got that's a couple of times. Yep.
What about you, Steven?
I think the first one I'm going to bring up is a movie that it wasn't my intro to him. My next performance will be my intro to Bill Paxton. But the first one I'm going to bring up is this was another thing Bill Paxton can have on his resume. He was in the first movie that was a surround sound THX movie. It was like the first one that was like that. This movie and Independence Day were both kind of the first like digital surround sound movies of their days. And this is Twister. And no matter how you feel about Twister, it was a classic. It was a classic. And Bill Paxton will still say he had a great time making it. And so I think that does show in his performance, too, where he just looks like he's having a good old time being in that movie. Because even though it's about tornadoes almost or killing people, it's still a fun ride. And so
I think that's one thing that movie had going for it. All the other giant disaster movies were all kind of like too serious.
Well, the Irwin Allen days of the 70s where it was like Towering Inferno and Poseidon Adventure and things like Earthquake, yeah, they were like really trying to be heavy, dramatic.
It's like those movies you listed, there was a few actors in there who kind of overplayed it where they just needed a good smack across the face.
Yeah, and really the original Poseidon Adventure was about a ship that ended up getting flipped over by a rogue wave, but the real story was deep about a man of faith wrestling with his belief in God. And so it's like they had to throw in all these things. Whereas Twister is just
very lighthearted.
A lighthearted tornado movie. It's so yeah. But yeah, it's just kind of a fun movie. And even though now maybe it seems really 90s for different reasons, like the tornado roared like a lion. But I think that was really just to show off the surround sound.
Yeah.
But every time there's a tornado comes through, it goes like, roar. You hear like this roar noise. So it's like, well, tornadoes don't roar. But it's still just fun. And you get to see a really early fun performance from Philip Seymour Hoffman, also in the late Philip Seymour Hoffman, also in this movie. So,
one thing that movie does kind of have a legacy.
What's that?
And it's this: people now know what they're in the movie as well in real life. They rated the tornadoes.
Yeah,
it's an F5.
Yeah. You really got to see. You really got to understand. Yeah, the rating system of tornadoes. Which I'm trying to remember what the F stands for now.
Force, I think.
No, not force. It's like a Fukunawa, or I don't know. It's some scale system or whatever, where 5 is the biggest and 1 being the smallest tornado or whatever. And in the movie, this is probably like one of those that's trying to be serious for a minute, where they're talking about F3s and F4s, and then the one woman goes, "Well, what's an F5?" And the one guy goes, "The finger of God." And so, but it's just. Overall, I mean, it's just a fun movie. And I think the line that I quote the most from this movie of Bill Paxton's is just a stupid thing to quote, but just the way he delivers it is just funny. Where they're using his new Dodge Ram, because this movie heavily commercialized Dodge Rams in this movie, or whatever. And she asks him if he's owning or leasing or what insurance he has on it. That's what it was. And he looks over and he goes, "Liability only." I think I say liability only more than anything from this movie, which is just ridiculous. But yeah, so this is just a fun performance. But let's go to your next one, Dakota.
All right, my next one, also kind of also a very sci-fi heavy movie, and actually pretty recent. Did we review Edge of Tomorrow?
It would have been before we started.
Ah,
It came out like the year before we started our show.
I know we talked about it just a lot because it was one of those surprise blockbusters.
Yeah, and it was one that didn't gain steam until after it had left theaters.
Yeah.
And so it kind of
came out on Blu-ray, and they tried to rename it, which was Live, Die, Repeat, The Edge of Tomorrow. I was like, what?
Yeah, it has like 3 different names. But yeah, Bill Paxton has a great role in that movie. Yeah.
Yeah, he plays just this incredibly hard-nosed. I think he was a sergeant, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I just love how he plays it too, where he just seems to be just reveling in being at war or something. We will go riding into battle. He just seems like he's like, and you can almost sense that he knows he's hamming up the performance too.
Yeah, he does. I don't think Bill Paxton does a decent Southern accent. I mean,
I think he is Southern.
Yeah, is he?
He's got a Southern accent more than he doesn't in things, and so it always makes me think he is Southern.
But there are degrees to it, like.
Well, yeah, how much he hams it, yeah.
Yeah, and this one, it's just full on, kind of like in a falsetto way, but just such a. This is the guy who's like, even with his legs broken off, he's still like got a knife between his teeth, like trying to take out some I don't even remember what the aliens are calling this, the mimics.
Yeah, like mimics.
Yeah, but he has kind of a few just lines where he just takes it and runs with it about how glorious war is. And
yeah.
in a way, it's kind of what they were trying to do with Patton, but just scaled down. Just really scaled down and over the top.
Paxton's Patton.
There you go.
Oh, go. Yeah. Edge of Tomorrow, just all around a great movie. We talked about that before. Good one to see. But Paxton, for the minimal screen time he does have, does just chew the crap out of the scenery. And it's fun. It's fun. He brings a lightheartedness to that. Something that Tom Cruise isn't great at. Tom Cruise usually doesn't, in those types of movies, bringing lightheartedness to it as much. And so it's nice when he can put guys like that just chew the scenery around him like that. So, yeah, it's a fun one. But yeah, so my next one is the first movie that I remember really noticing Bill Paxton in, and just thought he fit the role so well, which is why it was interesting when I heard recently that he auditioned for a different role in the same movie, and they thought he'd be better fit for this other one, and it's the movie Apollo 13, where he originally auditioned for the part that Kevin Bacon got of Jack Swigert, and heard that he lost to Kevin Bacon, and just thought he would take it like a man when Ron Howard called him and say like, "Oh, I thought you did that was a great choice picking Kevin Bacon." And Ron Howard goes, "Well, wait. I still want to give you a role. I want you to be Fred Hayes, one of the other lead astronauts that goes up on the Apollo 13 mission with Jim Lovell, played by Tom Hanks." And I just thought he did a great job. I remember seeing this in theaters when I was, whatever I was when it came out, like 10-ish. And just really, I liked just the trio of those guys that end up going to space, and Gary Sinise's role also as the one who had to stay behind because they're worried about measles. But I just thought those guys are really great at how they played off each other in those roles. And I really thought that he was really, in a lot of ways, the heart of those three. I mean, Tom Hanks is always kind of the heart, you know what I mean? He was the lead. But when you look at kind of those trio of guys in space, is that Fred Hayes in that movie, I don't know about reality, but in that movie just was kind of the heart of the three. And part of it was he's the guy who just seems to just be kind of suffering through it the hardest. Like, I remember when they first get up into space, he's the one who throws up and chunks are floating everywhere. And then on the way back, when everything has gone wrong, he's the one who gets the sickest, and he's battling kind of like almost like terrible flu-like symptoms mixed with dehydration and things like that. And so, I don't know, Bill Paxton does a great job of having you just kind of feel that in him, but at the same time through it you see his kind of family man aspect, and I don't know, I just really liked him in this, and then of course it's just a good movie all around. And so, but yeah, that's my number 2 pick. Just really enjoyed him in this movie. And it came out like a year before Twister. But Dakota, what's your next one?
My next one, the piece de resistance, as they say.
Number 1 pick.
And that would only have to be Frailty.
Frailty. Frailty, and all of you are going, what is Frailty?
Yeah, it's one of those movies that there really wasn't much hype for.
No,
and
not really.
Came out, and everybody who saw it it was kind of one of those word of mouth movies.
It got word of mouth, and kind of what helped it get a little more notice was that Stephen King came out with a statement saying that he enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And it was also directed by
Bill Paxton.
Bill Paxton also directed this movie, so kind of bringing a new level to it. But yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
Oh, it's fine. You could steal my thunder anytime. No, but this movie, really, if you edit it, it could go one of two ways. Bill Paxton is playing this kind of dad who loves his kids, gets the call from God, starts killing demons. Then there's the other one where he just completely loses his mind and starts murdering people.
Yeah, and that's the main crux of the movie, is that Matthew McConaughey plays one of the adult sons talking about his father, and that's what you're doing is the whole time you're going, did he really see this angel from heaven telling him that he's killing quote-unquote demons, or is this guy just a psycho serial killer?
Yeah, when that was the hook for me that got me interested in even seeing this movie, because this is back in the day when a movie took forever to make it onto, I think that's when VHS tapes were still big, but it took forever. So I was like, Frailty, I'll have to check it out when it comes out on tape. And the thing that really got my attention was people described like, oh, this angel comes down and tells this guy
while he's like under a vehicle working on it, because he was like an auto mechanic, right? And he's like laying under the vehicle, and like this angel appears. It's kind of an interesting scene.
Yeah, very interesting. Kind of. The scene actually, I don't think fits with the movie.
No, but that's what's kind of interesting about it. Like, it's not really meant to, because it's like you're trying to figure out if it's real vision or not.
Yeah, and just kind of from the get-go, this movie I found pretty enjoyable because it mostly does take place from the point of view of the son, and he's talking about how his dad, and this film just kind of never lets up. It just gets hold of you and drags you through this kind of crazy story, and you're not sure what to believe as it goes along. I know me, I was like, yeah, this dude just lost his marbles. He's gone.
Yeah, and you get to see some interesting performances from, Bill Paxton, Matthew McConaughey before the McConaissance,
yeah.
in that role, which it was kind of a different role for him in anything he's done before and after, even, I would say. And Powers Booth.
Yeah,
kind of a subtle Powers Booth performance too.
Yeah, I had no idea who he was, but seeing him in this, it's like
I knew him from Red Dawn, the original Red Dawn.
The better one, the best one. But yeah, this movie just really, really shows off what he can do, and the fact that he directed it just makes you wonder, why didn't he do more directing? But I guess that was his own personal choice.
Yeah, there was something about this movie where he apparently felt compelled to not just star but direct, and so you kind of get to see the two sides of Bill Paxton here, like him as the director and bringing this screenplay to life, but then also starring as the father. Is he crazy? Is he not? And so it kind of all around different Bill Paxton.
Oh yeah,
from a lot of other things he's done. So Frailty. If you're interested at all in kind of psychological thrillers, maybe even into crime movies, this is definitely worth a check out if you're interested in those at all, because you probably haven't seen it. Dakota and I have only heard of it just because we're weirdos who hear about these movies and check them out. But it's an interesting one.
Yeah, unfortunately, in the world we live in now, there's not a lot of TV channels that kind of show movies like this. I mean, TNT used to show it a lot because they had like kind of weird horror movies on Friday and Saturday.
That was the
nights.
channel that showed a lot, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And every once in a while you'll see this pop up, maybe in like a bargain bin or something, here and there. So yeah, it's definitely want to keep your eye out if you're interested in those types of movies. But yeah, we'll go on to my number one pick. I have done Twister, Apollo 13, and now we're going back a few years before those to the one, the only Tombstone. In Tombstone is just an all-around, like, where did this movie come from? It was a great Western in a time when there weren't, well, actually this was about when there was a turn where a few good Westerns come out, this and Unforgiven, but there just hadn't really been any other ones for a long time. And what was interesting about this movie is it had a lot of people in it where you're like, I wouldn't think this would be a good movie just based on who's playing the roles in this, because it was the movie about Wyatt Earp's time in Tombstone that led to the gunfight at the OK Corral. And Kurt Russell was going to be Wyatt Earp, where it's like, okay, maybe that was going to work. And then Bill Paxton played one of the Earp brothers, one of his brothers, Morgan, I believe was his name.
Yeah. And then you had
Sam Elliott.
Which,
Sam Elliott was the obvious choice for this movie in fit and things like that. But this movie is just a really good movie. And Bill Paxton doesn't do a whole lot, have a really big part in this movie. But it's another movie where we talked about, is he Southern, isn't he? He fits that cowboy. He fits that cowboy mold. And just does a really good job in this movie still. And I feel like sometimes that's where maybe he's suited best. When you think about the performance we've talked about, where he's not the main attraction.
Yeah,
and this is no offense to him, but he does really good jobs in these supporting roles where he just kind of holds things together a little bit. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's hard to be a good supporting actor too.
Yeah, you kind of have to stand out more and just give a more solid performance if you're a supporting character sometimes.
You have to be believable because you have to fit into the world that's around you.
Yeah.
And leads have to do that too, obviously, but in a supporting role it's like you're supporting. You can't be distracting. You have to be supporting. And so that just seems like when I think back on Bill Paxton, it's like that's where he fits it. But for one reason or another, he was a good supporter in a lot of the movies he was in. There's a few exceptions like Twister because it was just a kind of a big goofy blockbuster or whatever and things like that. But overall, that's kind of where he seems to shine the best through his career. And that would be the case with my last pick, Tombstone. A movie where when you look at the whole cast, none of them who are in the leads in Tombstone are really very often great leads. But maybe it works because they're all together in this movie, and they all just work as cowboys. So...
yeah, that movie kind of just had a really well-rounded cast. I mean, even with Val Kilmer, who's done some really questionable work.
Yeah, to a point where he's just like terrible now.
Yeah.
But people still say, "I'm your Huckleberry."
Yes, I actually just said that a couple days ago.
Of course you did. Of course you did. You and one of my brothers, the only two people that probably still quote this movie all the time.
I actually had a teacher who said this in high school, and he was a younger guy, and nobody got it. Like, this girl actually pulled out a dictionary and was trying to look up the word Huckleberry. Like, what does that mean?
There's Huckleberry Hound. Yeah. And this movie is, like, by kids these days standards, old. It was made in 1993, which, if any of you really pay attention, this is kind of a deep pull for if you're pulling references I mentioned on the show. But I brought up 1993 a few different times on this show as a year when a lot of good movies came out. But a lot of the good movies that came out in 93 were movies you wouldn't expect to be good movies just by who was in them or what they were.
Yeah,
they were just good.
You kind of referenced the 93 to 95, 96 a lot. And here's the funny thing. The good movies from that era, I don't think that you remember, you're taking with you into these new decades. They may not be Oscar winners, but they're still pretty good.
Yeah, hardly any of them are.
Yeah.
So, and Bill Paxton got to be in a few of those. He was in one that was a huge Oscar winner, and coming into, 96? When did Titanic come out? 96?
I thought it was 99.
Oh, maybe it was closer to the end of that decade.
Yeah.
I always forget for some reason when Titanic came out. But, of course, that would be... He was in Titanic, but he was the guy who brought you into the story and then was the guy who took you out of the story. He was the modern-day part of Titanic. He was the treasure hunter. And so a lot of people would reference that movie. I'm not a real fan of Titanic, and I wouldn't consider that one of his better performances either. So compared to some of the other stuff, but
yeah, I feel like the movie's just generally overrated.
Yeah. Yep. I even felt that just even before it was cool to say it was overrated. So I got that to my...
I actually remember going on a field trip to the Badlands around the time Titanic came out. There was a 16-minute interval on the radio where they played the song, then they played it again 16 minutes later.
No.
And I was like, this song needs to go away.
That
now.
reminds me of, I remember one time when I was in high school, it was when Evanescence was huge, and they had that Bring Me to Life song. And I remember one time I turned the key of my ignition on to go to work that morning, and it was, wake me up inside, And I remember I turned the key when I left work late that day, like 4:30 or something, turned the key, wake me up inside. It was like the chorus. I was like, but that song was on all the time, and so it wasn't crazy that happened. But yeah, what are some other just kind of honorable mentions you have with Bill Paxton, Dakota? I mean, we brought, I don't know if we brought it up on this episode. We were talking before. Weird Science was one a lot of people remember him from.
He was hysterical in Weird Science. Sadly enough, I remember his performance more than I do the two main ones.
He kind of stole the show a little bit.
Was Anthony Michael Hall in that? I can't remember if that was him.
Is Anthony Michael Hall.
All right. Such a horrible performance from him. Like, utterly forgettable. I don't even remember the other kid, the short brunette guy that that was
I don't either,
the
actually.
other half of that equation. Completely forgotten.
Yep.
Completely forgotten.
Some other ones that people know him from, I wouldn't call this one a good movie, but people know it, is Disney's remake they did in 1998 of Mighty Joe Young. So there's that.
Yeah, that was actually a big movie at the time. That's how Charlize Theron got famous.
It got pushed to be a big movie, and it didn't do terribly well. But it was based off of an old Marion C. Cooper movie and story. Marion C. Cooper, the guy who brought King Kong to screen, did this. And then they remade it, and Bill Paxton was the lead guy in it with Charlize Theron. Had a little love thing with her in that movie. So it was a family affair he did. Another movie that I would honorable mention him in, Although he's almost not in it. Well, I mean, he's in it, but it isn't a super memorable performance. But I still enjoy the movie. It's U571 from 2000. Decent movie he did.
Yeah, he consistently worked throughout his whole career. It's not like some actors, they kind of go away, then they come back, they go away, come back.
Yeah, I mean, he was in movies we all know. He was in True Lies. He did
Another James Cameron movie.
Yeah, him and James Cameron, they always work together. He did a movie in '95, same year as Ball's Routine, Frank and Jesse, about the James brothers that he did. So I mean, there's another Western he did after Tombstone there. He was in A Simple Plan with Billy Bob Thornton, and
that was a movie I remember mostly because FX used to play the crap out of it.
Yeah, yep, they did. It was one that Sam Raimi directed. Another one that some people know now, and I'm surprised. This movie actually has a following that shocks me. It's the movie Vertical Limit. There's people that still talk about this movie, and I think it's because FX played the crap out of this one for a while. But it's one where he kind of plays the billionaire guy who's going to do this kind of commercializing of climbing this mountain. I'm trying to remember which mountain it is. Is it K2? I think it's K2. I'm sticking with K2. But it also stars people like Chris O'Donnell and Robin Tunney, and Scott Glenn plays a crazy man in this movie, and it's kind of a weird movie, but it has this weird following of people who are like, "Oh, Vertical Limit's good." So, I guess I'll bring that up, And he had like cameo performances in a couple of the Spy Kids movies. I mean, yeah, he just worked over the years. I mean, he was still working up until his passing because his passing was unexpected. His complications, but he was in a CBS show, Training Day, that was just kind of taken off. And so, yeah, it's...
I'm pretty sure he would have popped up in one of the Avatar sequels James Cameron's making.
I would assume so.
Yeah, there's only like 4 more coming at us, so pretty sure he would have fit in there somewhere.
Or was going to be the narrator of the Avatar ride or something at Disney World or something. But yeah, it would have been inevitable if he wouldn't have suddenly passed. But he left behind a body of work that he's very memorable in, and he's kind of one of those guys where because of the things he's been in, he's gonna be remembered just because he's been in a lot of memorable movies over the years that some of are even standing the test of time, like Apollo 13 and things like that are just gonna be around, and things like that. And so, kind of a sad thing. It's always sad when it's a sudden thing and when they're only in their early 60s, but kind of one of those reminders that status and money don't protect you. It's kind of a harsh reality, but those were just some of the movies we enjoyed him in and found memorable and some of our favorites. So anything else, Dakota, you'd like to say on Bill Paxton or anything?
He definitely passed way too soon. Even though he was 61, he still looked like he was in his 40s. I mean, I don't know.
Yep. He was what they call Hollywood 61.
I don't know how he did it, but he should have marketed it.
Yeah.
I really think he probably could have been around for probably, good Lord, who knows how long.
Yeah. Yep. Kind of one of those sad deals. Complications from surgery is what they're saying it was. And so, yeah, that's the reality, but that's that. And so with that, we'll close out this kind of a retrospective of some of Bill Paxton's career. Bill Paxton. A lot of people mix up Bill Pullman, Bill Paxton because their names seem so similar, but
completely different men, people.
Completely different men. Both have had memorable roles, but completely different men. And so, yeah, we'll bring this one to a close. Remember to follow us on Facebook and Twitter places, and subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube and those places so you can keep up with us, knowing we got the new episodes, knowing there's new movie news. A few weeks back when the Bill Paxton death made the news. That was something we kind of shared on our page and things like that. And so we kind of do things like that, just to kind of do updates on things like things in the news that are bigger. And so yeah, we hope you'll do those things, and we'd appreciate it. And maybe by doing that, you can show that you appreciate us or like the show. So with that, we'll close this out. So this is Steven.
And this is Dakota.
We'll see you later.